That is the best way I can describe Roger's Sonic Adventure Genisys level pack. With a mod where the story and gameplay are quite closely interconnected in a way rarely found with other level packs, and the fact that this mod is bundled with a new character, I'm also very confused with how to approach this in a way that makes coherent sense. Regardless of how ill-advised it is for this to be the first level pack I review, let's just dive straight into the video. Firstly, the actual story of Adventure Genisys is strange. Essentially a Sonic-themed parody of the Terminator franchise, the mod is built to be played with a new character called Arnox, an Arnold Schwarzenegger copycat that I'll go into more detail later. As best as I can understand it, your quest throughout this new story is to start the creation of Sonic Adventure Genisys as Arnox, a robot doppelganger of Knuckles created by Tails, by going back in time to 1998 and making sure Takashi Iizuka creates a version of Sonic Adventure we all know and love. To do this, you must navigate 7 levels punctuated by cutscenes. These take the form of narration over still images, but that is admittedly the best you can really do with the Doom engine. But good luck getting that story the first time through, because the level pack is ridiculously weird. You start in the 2017 Sega offices, get told by Tails you're a robot doppelganger of Knuckles, are sent back in time to 1998 to run through the offices again, somehow appear in a replication of the Station Square and Mystic Ruins adventure fields, play through a remake of Windy Valley which contains the Project Genisys system, destroy the system, end up in the Sega offices again, from where you enter Iizuka's mind, apparently a weird fusion of Dark Age realism and meta-era wackiness, escape, and then enter something called the Sega Swirl, presumably to get back to 2017, where you end up fighting Boom Knuckles before drowning in some orange liquid which I think is supposed to be lava. Sonic and friends then narrate how the future is uncertain, but you're sent back to the title screen before the speech is finished. Roger Van der Wade, which is the moniker the creator of the level pack goes by on YouTube, is probably most well known for creating absurd animations that summarize Sonic, and other games, in a short time frame. With the off-model character designs, meta jokes and questionable voice acting quality, they're sort of like snapshots into early Newgrounds animation, and that spirit definitely lives on in this level pack. From any kind of objective viewpoint, this story is unintelligible garbage that lacks real beginning, middle or end, and just kinda flip-flopped from one level to another. But if you approach it without thinking at all critically, the goofiness of the entire thing is pretty fun. A Knuckles clone based on the Terminator is a fairly stupid idea, but also one that is funny in its absurdity. Going back to 1998 and seeing Rudes and Sado audition for their parts in Sonic Adventure 2 is ridiculous. Overall, the pack deserves some level of merit for even having a clear story, because it's more than even the original game really had. Just don't expect it to be particularly legible. In terms of level design, the mod falls into a similar structure to most of Roger's work. While the levels are quite open, they are very linear with how you progress through them, with usually only the one path. Add in a lot of design features that most mods ignore, such as mid-stage transitions, 2D sections and forced forward movement, and you get a very obvious and unique style. The first 3 levels in this pack are, to be honest, not great, with them mostly just being open, empty spaces with little to do and nothing to really explore. You start in 2017, run through the Sega offices, and then the second level is pretty much the exact same, but the whole area is a bit brighter aesthetically. The third level is probably the biggest break from the formula the pack has, as it's a remake of the SA1 adventure fields, but it's somewhat dampened by the fact that there really isn't much to do or explore here. You just run through Station Square, then go to Mystic Ruins, run to Tails' workshop, then run to the end in about a minute and a half. Luckily, the entire thing picks up a bit with the 4th level, which is a remake of Windy Valley, and therefore has some actual enticing gameplay. This is where you start to see some more of the Roger mannerisms I mentioned earlier, as there are moments where you're forced forward without being able to stop and multiple transitions, mostly of extremely questionable subtlety. Unfortunately, after one pretty good level, you're dumped into the 5th level, which I'd say is probably the worst one here by a large margin. It's almost entirely 2D, with the only 3D sections being very short and almost completely automated. Considering this is the level where you infiltrate Project Genisys, which appears to be remaking the adventure games in the meta-era style of mostly 2D simplistic platformers, this is probably intentionally bad, but I always feel that actively making the play experience worse is probably not the best way to try and prove your point. After that, you end up in Takashiazuka's head, and then there's Void populated by floating islands of Green Hill. It all feels eerily similar to the cyberspace levels of Sonic Frontiers, or at least what we've seen of them so far, a point Roger made himself on his Twitter page. For the final level, you end up in the Sega Swirl. I still can't tell you why you end up here, but with the Live and Learn remix in the background and variety in the level design, this is my personal favourite of the lot. The only problem I really have with it is the lack of checkpoints, a problem found throughout the pack but only really relevant here and in the 5th level. The pack as a whole isn't very difficult at all, but there were a few times where I simply didn't jump after pressing the relevant button, a pretty common issue in SRP2, and then ended up 75% of the level further back. The pack ends with a boss fight against Boom Knuckles, which is extraordinarily easy due to his attack pattern literally being just him jumping constantly. I think this might be a reference to his whole infinite jumps exploit from Rise of Lyric, but it does make the whole mod a bit anticlimactic. An overall fun experience, but the level design has definitely improved since this mod came out. Throughout this video, I'm sure you'll have noticed that Adventure Genisys has an aesthetic that is entirely different to almost any other mod out there. All of Roger's mod packs borrowed their aesthetic from his animations, hence the hand-drawn, slightly off-putting designs most of the characters have. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it certainly helps make the entire thing stand out. I also like the music, none of it's original, but it's very good. The main appeal of the mod as a whole though, is the cameos and references. I'm sticking it into aesthetics because I don't know where else to put it, but there are so many Sega references, some very obvious, some significantly less so. I'm not going to go into detail about them because there's a lot and I prefer for you to just go out and find them yourself, but just know their big appears in the 2nd level, so the mod gets a few extra points just for that. In fact, the only real problem with the aesthetics of the mod is the voice acting of some of the characters. I actually think the voice actors for pretty much everyone does a great job with what they were expected to do, but certain actors, especially Tails' one, have some serious problems with their audio quality, specifically how their audio peaks quite a lot. I think that's a problem with their mic, and considering how the voice clip got into the game, it might even be intentional, but it still doesn't sound great. Adventure Genisys comes bundled with a new character that is intended to be played with, Arnox. I've already detailed how he's mostly a Knuckles-based parody of the Terminator, even down to his eventual fate, but I'm going to go into a bit more detail about his moveset here. It's just Knuckles' moveset. Yeah, the character clearly wasn't really meant to be a series character, so I'm okay with that. And I think the main appeal of the character is supposed to be his voice line and personality, which he has a lot more of than most characters. He is a separate file, so you can play as him through other mods, but he's so integrally linked to the content of this mod that I don't think it's really worth it. He achieves what he was supposed to do very well, just don't expect him to be anything more. Overall, considering that this is an April 1st joke mod, I'm genuinely quite impressed with how good this level pack actually is. There's clearly quite a lot of effort put into this, and as nonsensical as the story is, there is actually a lot more of a narrative here than there is even in the base game. There are some duds with the level design, but I think I was somewhat spoiled by the fact that my first Roger Van der Weyde map was Angel Island Tour, which feels like it refined and improved a lot of the serious ideas that this map had. I'm going to give Adventure Genisys a solid 7 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed the video, and ciao.